mayor on a Republican ticket for the town of Hamden. It's a pleasure for me to be here this evening. I certainly welcome the invitation that I received to participate in this getting to know you session. I don't want to call it a debate because right now the Democrats are in the middle of a primary, and I certainly don't want to interfere in that process, certainly favoring one candidate over another. I just want to be neutral as far as that goes. But I don't mind telling you about who I am and what I stand for. I've lived in Hamden for about 25 years. My wife Kathy's been a native Hamden resident all her life, with a brief stint in New Haven. She works at the Acropolis Diner, and some of you may know her from there. I had some experience in the United States Navy, honorary discharge, Vietnam era veteran, and I have a couple dogs. I really love Hamden. This is about Hamden. It's not really about Republican versus Democrat. We're a town of about 60,000 people, and I believe in inclusive governance. One of the things that we haven't seen in a long, long time in the town is the ability of the people to participate. I'm not even sure if we've ever seen that. What I'd like to bring to the town of Hamden is the ability for people to have direct access to the mayor's office in a variety of ways. One way in particular is I intend to establish a commission of sorts which would sit down with the mayor once a month, about 15 people. And in that process, we would go over all the business that's before the mayor that will be sent down to the legislative council to build up a consensus. People have an opportunity then to have direct input into the mayor. Of course, being the mayor, I would reserve to have the final decision on that. But having the input would be something that would be invaluable to me. I'd also anticipate meeting in various communities at least once a quarter. Again, bringing the public officials with me so residents of Hamden have access to local government. Also, openness. I intend to use the internet in a way that we haven't had the ability to do so in the past. For example, I would have bills that the town pays. It's a relatively easy thing to do. People can click on that, they can see how the money is being transacted, where it's flowing. Always follow the money. I have an MBA in finance. I've worked for 3 different corporations. Well, if you consider NET and SBC and AT&T, I don't know if you want to call that 1 or 3 right there. But they've gone through a number of changes. I worked there for about 19 years, primarily in the financial area. I'm familiar with budgets. I had to manage a $1 billion revenue budget, a $400 million expense budget. And in the budgeting process, corporate America tends to look at a 5-year period. In the town of Hamden, we tend to look at a single year, 1-year period. Really, it's no way to manage a town. If you're moving into town, just think about this for a second. If you're moving into the town, you want to know if the finances of the town are fairly stable. And so if you have a 5-year projection, and in fact, one of the things that we can do is put the mill rate up on the internet along with the tax for a particular piece of property projected over the next 5 years. That way, if somebody's coming into town, they can actually see if this is the place I want to be, if I can afford the taxes, and what the issues are that are facing the residents of Hamden. It's really a new way of doing business. And in terms of consolidation of departments, there's things that we can do with the Board of Education, working with the Finance Department on the town side, streamlining payrolls, accounts payable. There's a lot of redundancy that we can move out and consolidate. The other way I anticipate having more involvement with the residents of Hamden is to establish what I campaigned on 2 years ago, the Education Task Force. Just recently, the mayor had proposed a $4 million reduction in the education budget. The first time the superintendent heard anything about it was the night that he announced it. It's a lack of communication, and as a result, there was an uproar from the parents and people in the community. It really created unnecessary anxiety. And so one of the things that we'd like to do, that seems to be, the council meeting and the budget cycle seems to be the only opportunity that residents have to address the council and to get their voices heard. With the Education Task Force, it'll be, again, a collection of people that can tap into all the resources, even including Southern Connecticut State University's PhD program if we have to bring in some candidates at no charge to the town. But they would have an opportunity to participate in, like a think tank. For example, let's talk about, shall we bring special education into the town of Hamden? What are the pros and cons of doing that? And then have this task force analyze it from every aspect. We'd have teachers, we'd have parents, we'd have students participating, professionals and business people. In other words, a cross-section of the community, so we have a 360-degree analysis of the problem. And then, as a result of the task force, that would be sent over to the Board of Education as input and consideration. We are not superseding any authority that's established by the Board of Education. We're working in tandem with the board and the superintendent. The other area that I would like to look at is the streets and sidewalks. That has been a perennial problem in here in Hamden. One of the things that people ask me all the time is, how is one street identified over another street? People don't seem to have the answer to that question. You would think that would be a fairly obvious question, or the answer to the question. The reality is done behind closed doors. Who knows how it's selected? A list is developed and is sent over to the council, and they vote on it. And remember, when I sat on the council, by the way, I sat on the council for 4 years. And I remember when the list came down, there was really no rhyme or reason for how the roads were selected. I mean, you know, people will tell you it was engineering, but the residents whose streets are affected, they can't buy that. They don't know why their street was bypassed. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a street and sidewalk commission. They'll be made up of one person for each district. We'll be meeting perhaps in the council chambers. People would approach a podium. They would then present evidence as to why their street should have precedence over somebody else's street. And then each district representative would negotiate among themselves, because we have a limited pool of funds, about $1 million. We might want to do a $5 million bonding so we can accelerate the repair of streets and sidewalks. And again, the commission would be the authority to do that. Once they develop the list, again, it would be sent down to the legislative council. They will make the determination as to what streets get done. We have the final authority to decide that. There are a number of issues facing the town, certainly. I mean, recently, with this last budget, I'm sure you all are familiar with it, the mayor had done some things to balance the budget that I don't agree with. Namely, you know, threatening the rank and file with layoffs unless they gave up some concessions. That's really not the way to negotiate with the union. It's not certainly something that I would never do. I think it's important. But what happened as a result of that process is that contracts have been deferred into years 1 and 2 of the next administration. Now, what that means simply is that the next administration is going to be hamstrung. They have to deal with not only the recent approval of a $40 million project, which is equivalent to $120 per person just on their taxes alone, but they have to deal with the escalating salaries as a result of the deferred of the contracts into years 1 and 2. Now, it's going to take all of my financial expertise to unravel some of that thing. It's really, look, I'm not going to promise that I'm going to reduce taxes. That is an impossibility. Anybody who tells you that, they're lying. It's plain straight out. What I'm going to try to do is levelize the taxes. And I'd like to do a 5-year projection, and I'd like to get the union to negotiate with me and understand the problems that are facing the town. This is really the only way to do it effectively. Any other way, any other attempt to do it is simply circumventing the problem. We have an unfunded pension plan. With the recent market declines, we're significantly below where we need to be with the pension. The mayor has reduced the amount of contributions going into the pension plan. We're now bleeding more money out than we're putting in, and it's currently eroding. That is a financial tsunami that's it's a wave coming right over the town of Hamden. We haven't even identified and recognized other post-employee benefits. People don't recognize what that is, and I don't need to go through a technical explanation, but suffice to say, once it's on the balance sheet, we're going to have to set up a reserve for it, or our credit rating will be hit as a result of it. We maximized our credit rating, our credit capacity, which I mentioned to you before, and that has to be addressed as well. So what we need is someone who can take the helm of the town, use their financial expertise, and in fact, do what's right for the town of Hamden. Thank you very much.